limit of 0.787 seconds.
Well, greetings world and greetings SevenSpot. You know what it is? It's time. Oh God, it's time. It is time for another virtual and socially distant sevens. And what a treat today. You know what we have? Today we have an all-Canadian virtual and socially distant sevens, because we have on the other end of the line Lou Trottier from Mississauga, Ontario. Just chatted with him earlier, and right now it's about 2:45 here at 5:45 p.m. in Ontario. A balmy 22 degrees here and 25 degrees in Ontario. It's a wonderful evening. Now, before I bring in Lou, I'm going to give everyone the curriculum vitae for Lou. I'm going straight to what is it called? It's called muckrack.com. I think he knows it because he probably created it, but it says he is All About Imports owner. He's the owner of All About Imports. He writes for the Globe and Mail as a contributor. His Twitter handle is hashtag Lou's Garage, and he's all about family, cars, and guitars, which pretty much covers it. Is that about right, Lou?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
You got that pretty close. Yeah.
That's cool. Now we got you in the picture, and I'm in the picture too. But you know, we can talk about you and me, and we can talk about the weather. But let's talk about your seven. I mean, we had a chat just using Messenger about your seven, and I know that we have a minor connection because you did inspections for the fellow that owned the company that made my Demon Motorsport. But
that's right, yes.
You actually came by your seven a little differently. Would you mind explaining that to us? I'm going to take myself out of the picture, and you're going to be the star. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, my sevens, I put it on the road in '99, so it's not old now. A friend of mine had sort of an original, and he was an engineer and bought the car, and it needed a lot of work, and he had the skill but not the time. So in essence, we made a deal. My business was young at that time, so I had lots of spare hours. I own an automotive repair shop. Mm-hmm. And the deal I made with him was I was going to finish repairing his car, finish fixing his car, getting it ready, and in the process, I was going to copy it. So I had his at the very bare essentials of a chassis and everything out of it. So I literally, when I built the car, I know you're all very well of the Ron Champion book. I didn't have that book. My car predates that book. So I literally, leave the doors open. Sorry, distraction. The Ron Champion book came out after I had the car, his car, and what I did was I used his as a jig. So I flipped it over. I had a couple tables that I built, and I copied his piece by piece until I got a first dimension, which was the bottom of the chassis, and then I got the top of the chassis, and then I literally had a table, two tables side by side, and I got to my third dimension after, making this crazy jig out of wood and I swear glue, and then I got to my third dimension.
Wow,
got cool. The chassis completed, hung it up on the wall, worked on his car, back and forth. I pulled molds off all the fiberglass pieces that I could, the nose cone, and his car was aluminum, but I pulled fiberglass molds off the sides, the side panels, and set them aside. And, I was learning. I was not a fiberglass expert. I was not even a metal expert by any means. I was in my early 20s, and worked on his car for a bit, worked on my car for a bit, worked on his car until I had essentially a functioning chassis and a functioning body, and just sort of that's how the genesis of the car came around.
Wow, that is a really cool story. Yeah. And there it is over behind you in all its wonderfulness.
Yeah, let me flip my camera here. We were just practicing how to flip the cameras, and I think I mastered it. There we go. There we go. Let me just gonna pull this door down here. I'll knock the light off a bit. didn't do a lot. Yeah, so the only pieces that I didn't make on this car, that rear aluminum piece there, and the aluminum hood. I'm not terribly great with sheet metal, so I farmed those out. But absolutely, pretty much every other piece on this car, the interior is all carbon fiber pieces that I made over the years. All the gauges. So, long story short, it was on the road in 1999, and then I blew it up. And I'm an autocrosser, which is your theme for the day.
Yep.
And I had a 6-cylinder Datsun engine in it, which was obscene.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, when I built the car, and you know, I was young and foolish, and being an import guy, I wanted it import power, and it was horsepower, and a Datsun engine provided an ample amount of torque and horsepower. The problem being, it was huge and it was heavy.
Yeah.
And it was like a Mustang, or a typical North American heavy front, light rear end. But it still did pretty decently at autocrossing. And
that's cool.
When I kept blowing those motors up, and in 2012, I think I blew it up for the last time. And that's when I decided to retrofit a more appropriately sized engine, which I'll show you in a minute. And it's got an SR20 DET, which is a Nissan turbocharged motor.
Yeah, lovely engine.
So in 2012, this car went through a massive restructure. I rebuilt the car from essentially the seats forward, and started buying parts out of the UK. As you can see, these are Caterham seats there, and all the suspension and whatever had to be modified. The pickup points for my control arms were too high, and my bump steer geometry was off. So I really said, okay, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix it right. And it became a 9 or 10 year project. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I bought a 3D printer, and then went mad with 3D printing everything. So all these bezels and everything, zoom in there. Those are all 3D printed bezels. I've got the workings of a lower panel there that I've still not finished. But the carbon fiber dash, carbon fiber everything, in amongst all the 3D printed pieces.
Well, that's truly lovely.
Bought some side windows out of a car to the UK. Bought some seats out of a Caterham in California, shipped them in, and really sort of started making a little more refined, because it was pretty rudimentary before. It was quite. It's always been a decent car, but it was just kind of very rough around the edges. So.
Well, it doesn't look that rough around the edges to me, but
yeah.
But I will say that I love the black and silver. That's a nice look. It looks great.
So the car used to be red. In its previous life, it was red, and I painted it here. So I painted it at the beginning of COVID. I've never painted a car in my life, and I literally painted it here. I'll show you momentarily where I painted it, and I was surprised at actually how well it turned out.
Yeah,
it didn't turn out too bad.
Yeah,
and I was quite surprised. But you can see, it's not perfect, right? Like, it's any body guy is going to see it, but it's been taking all kinds of autocross abuse recently.
Yeah,
and these are all pylon. I literally just cracked that last event. And pylons are surprisingly hard when you're not paying attention to them. But, yeah. But what else could I show?
Well, can I ask you what differential is in
it's got the Datsun. Yes,
it does have the Datsun. Okay.
Yes, and it's destined to come out.
Yeah.
I need a limited slip one.
Yeah.
But I did create an independent suspension back there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
A little bit right there. And I can't really see it. But it's got a Datsun R280 differential in it. And
all right.
This summer or this winter, the goal is to buy a limited slip diff.
Yeah.
And I didn't really notice it with the previous motor in it when I'm autocrossing, but now I get the one wheel peel, as they say. very excessively. It's got more horsepower now,
Mm-hmm.
so it tends to really spin this tire right here. So I put massive brakes on it as well. As you can see, it's got truly overkill in the brake department, and it's got 4 piston calipers in the front, and I beat the living life out of it.
And is it the Datsun brakes that's behind, or
no Datsun? They're all custom made. So the spindles were Chevy Chevette. Once upon a time, they were Chevy Chevette, and we literally took the rotors from the Chevette and sliced them apart and made these adapter plates. You can see it right there.
You can see it. Yeah.
So that whole little adapter hub is mated to the Chevy Chevette, just the outer part of the rotor. So we just took the bearing race and the very top hat of the rotor, and then we made an adapter to take these big rotors, which are like a performance AEM, like a Brembo sort of style.
Yeah.
And
are they the one? Did you put them in with the new engine, or were they
correct?
Hold back. Okay.
Yeah, they were back there. I'll take the hood off. Hang on, I'm just gonna prop my phone right there.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see if I can do that. Hang on. I came prepared with this little holder. There we go. Look at that.
That's great.
So all right. So starting with the turbocharger on an SR20, the turbocharger is actually hanging downward.
Yep.
So I disassembled it. I purchased a manifold to flip it, and then I had to make a plate to all these aftermarket flip turbochargers or manifolds are for the larger T28 Garrett's. This is the stock T25. So I actually had to machine out a whole adapter system to bring it back down to the factory turbo. I didn't want a big turbo. I didn't want a big obnoxious turbocharger, so I wanted to stick with the original. So I stuck with the original, but I had my steering column was in the way, so I had to flip it.
I get
it. It turned out pretty well, and so I flipped the manifold, took the turbocharger apart, flipped it over, and I had to make all these tubes. I had to cut them and shorten them and make that tube there, and make the exhaust downpipe there, and over here my throttle body. My throttle body right here, as you can see, I've made this adapter plate right here. Now, the throttle normally bolts right there.
Yeah, right.
But that puts my plate right
up against. Yeah.
Yeah, so that puts my throttle right there. So I actually made this whole piece to space it out and turn it, which, you don't, when you have this idea in your head, you're like, yeah, I can make that, and then all of a sudden you're 50 hours later, and you're like, why am I doing this foolish thing?
Been there,
but it worked.
Yeah,
been there, done it. It worked, and you get better as you go along, and
you've got it all packed in there. That's a fact.
Yeah, well, I wanted everything under the hood.
Yeah,
and so I've got the oil cooler there, the rad, and then the intercooler is behind the radiator. And I created over here. Let's see if I can point it over here. So over here you can see a little inlet right there. And right off, just beside the rad, right over there. That's the inlet to the intercooler. And it takes air beside the rad, and it's all shrouded. It takes air beside the rad and routes it to the intercooler. And from the bottom.
That's cool. As I say, you got it really packed in there. I know of another fellow in Ontario who's got the same engine with the turbocharger, and his intercooler lives outside of the car.
Yes, I've seen pictures of that car, and I was really wanted everything tucked underneath the hood. As it was. Back to the brakes. These are all the brakes that all of this is all handmade. Like a balance beam there from my front master cylinder. sorry, my front master cylinder, my rear master cylinder, my clutch master cylinder, but all of that is mounted inside underneath the dash, simply because there's just no room here. There was no room for me to get anything. Brake biasing valve right there. Had a brake leak, and all my powder coated parts are no longer powder coated. The brake fluid ate them all. I put a heater in it, not so much because I wanted heat, just because I need more coolant in the system. Okay. And I've figured I was going to drive it late in November, but I don't know if I am anymore. But I did put a heater in it, and I don't know if I'm ever going to use it, but it does, however, provide an extra liter
of coolant
that I very, very much wanted to have. I put a pressurized system because my radiator. Am I going too fast?
No, not at all.
Am I going too fast? There's everything.
Oh no.
So my rad. Okay, so my rad doesn't have. I had to seal up the rad because I don't have access to it underneath there. So I had to make all these tubing. So I had, that's my coolant tube going to the top of to the bottom of the rad. It goes over the beam back down, and then catches the bottom of the rad. But because I didn't have any access to be able to put coolant in it, I created a pressurized system.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I got it.
Coolant there.
Very cool.
Yeah. Computers there. I haven't quite finished my wiring yet. It's still kind of a little bit of a mess. This here is for my electric emergency brake. So like most sevens, they have an emergency brake down there. I didn't want it there because it was, it's a small enough cockpit as it is. So what I did is, if you listen.
No, got it. That's great.
So underneath the car, I've got a linear cylinder, and it's applying the emergency brakes. So underneath, right in the very center of the car on the bottom side, I machined out all kinds of pieces to mount a linear, actuator cylinder underneath.
And it's yanking on some cable.
Yeah, and it's just simply pushing on the cables. I designed a circuit. I etched a circuit out with the, my rudimentary electronic skills, and it actually works very well. And I 3D printed. I 3D printed my limit switches under, like the mounts for the limit switches underneath there, and it worked very well.
It's a beauty. Wow.
Yeah.
When I was chatting with you on Messenger, you said that you actually did build your 7, and you have. You completely built it. That's great.
Yeah. No, I do. I do seem to like cars, apparently.
Apparently, you do.
So I've got an old 912 there,
which I saw earlier on YouTube today.
Yeah.
Nice show.
That's a Puma, which is going to be our first electric car conversion. This is my old 308 that's in the works.
Lovely.
So over here, this is my little fabrication area over here. Yeah, just got a lathe and an old mill and all the basic stuff here. Sheet metal. What sheet metal work I do. So this is just basically where everything gets built.
So that's where you spun your brake.
Yes. So the Super 7 has sat right in this spot, right where that chair and that MIG welder are. The 7 has sat there for 8 years up on stands.
Oh yeah.
And so I literally made this area into a little paint booth, and I literally painted it right here because my body shop was closed because of COVID. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I wanted to get the car done, so I'm like, I got to paint the darn thing myself. So I painted it myself, and it turned out okay.
I'll say it did. It's a beauty.
Yeah. So. What else can I show you? Any questions? Stuff I'm not gonna
well, actually, I'm good with what you've got there. I mean, what can I say? I'm gobsmacked because I've managed to put together my kit, which was based on my skill set was great. But when I look at what you've done, it's very professionally done. I love your car.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's still very much a work in progress. I've still got things I want to get done on it. I want to clean up all the wiring on it because I made the wiring harness wire by wire. The SR20 wiring harness obviously came out of a car that was 6 feet longer,
Uh-huh.
and so I had to wire by wire shorten the harness, and the fact that it works without any sort of major electrical problems is I'm gobsmacked that it actually drives and runs very well, actually.
Well, you're well over my head when you mentioned the electrics. That's just like, oh, well, I'm glad I've just got the bike engine harness in mine, and I'll leave it at that. And I'll be happy with that. If I need to, at some point in the future, I'll turn it over to a Sparky, and he can do it for me.
Yeah, I'll start it up. Yeah, that's it.
Lovely.
Yep. Exhaust coming out the back. Okay.
And you're working on your skid plate for the oil pan as we speak. Or
yes. Well, I've made it. I have to redesign the oil pan this winter. I actually have to take an inch out of it.
Yeah.
As you can see there.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kept smashing the oil pan.
Yeah.
I have 2 sets of tires.
Yeah.
These autocross tires are, the Potenza RE71s, and they're a little bit lower. So
yeah.
It brings my oil pan to the just like oh my god, close to the floor. So I made this. I've smashed 3 oil pans.
Yeah.
So I made this skid plate to get me through the summer.
Yeah.
So next winter I'll actually build a new oil pan that gives me that inch of relief that I need.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, Lou, I've got to say thank you. You, on very short notice, you come through, and I'm going to bring us both into the picture. Yeah, I got to say thank you, Lou. Every time I have the opportunity to see another person's sevens, it all brings our. As I said before the show, this is all not about me. I'm not a TV personality. I'm not even a YouTuber like you are. Oh, well, thank you. But as far as I'm concerned, it's all about bringing the community together. And in Canada, we don't have a large community. There's just like a few of us. In other countries, it's huge. But so when I have the opportunity to meet another one nearby, I got to say thank you again, Lou. This is fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go to my YouTube channels, look up my name, Lou, L-O-U, and last name Trottier, and there's all kinds of super sevens.
Yeah, and actually, what I was going to say in finishing up, I'm going to link your YouTube channel, and I'm also going to put the hashtag in.
Fantastic.
And also for your blog. So all together, we'll find our way back to Lou.
Globe and Mail for the kidding.
You bet. It'll all be in there. All right, Lou, I'm going to say thanks. All right. Cheers for now. You bet. Okay. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Enjoy the weather out in Vancouver.
Thanks again. Bye.